This podcast is brought to you by Penji. Penji is a creative subscription service that gives you access to pre-vetted, agency-trained creatives from all over the world. From graphic design to illustrations to social media management and web development, it's all included for one monthly price. It's time to say goodbye to the hassle of searching for top-notch creative talent. With Penji, you get quality and consistency delivered right to your inbox every day. Carefully crafted for you by humans, so meet your new creative team today. Head over to penji.co for more and enter the coupon code located within the podcast show notes.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to the Fully Managed Podcast. Rob, thank you so much for joining me. I really appreciate it. So you are... Oh, sorry, I didn't mean to... What did you say?
I said, thank you. Love being here.
I am very excited to have you on. So what we are going to do today is we're going to start with a game. I like to curate my games for my guests. So this game is unique to you, and I hope that you have fun with it. So because you're familiar with sponsorship, I think that this will be a very fun time. So this is called Sponsor It or Skip It. So I'm going to give you a bunch of scenarios in which you could choose to sponsor this if you think it's worth it, or you could choose not to. We're not going to talk about how much money it would be. Maybe you'd consider it at a certain charge. We'll see. But okay, you ready?
I'm ready.
Alrighty. The first one is an international competitive rock skipping league. Would you sponsor that?
Oh, that's a interesting question. It depends on where it's located, and because if it was in Scotland, you could have all sorts of interest in Scotland. If it's in America, no. So I'll say skip it.
Okay, perfect. I understand the time and the place matters. Okay, the World Championship of Hot Dog Eating.
Oh, I'd do that.
Yeah?
Yep.
Hot dogs are good. That's good. I would like that. I Joey Chestnut and the Joey Chestnuts of the
world.
Yeah,
I mean, it's a big deal on July 4th. And you've got a lot of people. Nathan's, of course, is the big sponsor, but Oscar Mayer and all those others. So I would go with that.
Yeah, I think it's very, everyone enjoys it, even if it's kind of gross, but it's just it's a fun American pastime, eating hot dogs.
Correct.
An influencer who only reviews gas station coffee.
Say that again.
An influencer who only reviews gas station coffee. So this is not an event.
I think that's pretty cool.
Right, that's a very unique niche. I enjoy that. I do. Yeah. I like coffee from around. So I would be interested.
Yeah.
Okay. A Broadway musical about cryptocurrency.
I'd do that.
It's a hot goss.
It's like AI. It's a hot topic.
Yeah, if they made a musical about AI, I would totally see it. I'm not even a big musical person, but I think I'd be interested in that.
Yeah.
All right, last but certainly not least, a virtual concert in the metaverse, and it features hologram Elvis.
I would do that only because I'm getting more and more involved in AI, and that is a generational thing. Younger generational, people my age don't quite get AI yet, and so I would think that demographically that would be a good thing.
Yeah, it is. I think it's good to get your toes in the sand, so to speak. There's always this new thing, and I think sometimes it's a new shiny object, and it's not necessarily something to really bat an eye at. But AI is definitely something that's becoming more and more incorporated into marketing and the agency world. So I definitely think it's something that everyone needs to kind of get involved with in a certain way in order to stay ahead.
Yeah, I was at the 2012 Olympic Games in London, and I had come up with an idea that they had already come up with. And, they were featuring icons of the London music scene. And I thought, there ought to be a icon of Freddie Mercury. Okay. And they did it. I mean, so it wasn't a hologram, but it got pretty close to a hologram.
That's really cool.
That was, I mean, you could do, you know, the surviving or the deceased members of the Beatles, you know, all that kind of stuff. So I think that's pretty cool.
Yeah, they're even doing like I don't really know, like virtual concerts now are becoming more popular of like dead artists, which I think is questionable in like ethics, but is still something that's very cool for people that are big fans of musicians that have passed and they'll never be able to see them live.
Yeah, especially your generation, who I had the benefit of seeing them either live or, you know, on television. But you know, a lot of these artists have passed, and so to see them live would be I mean, Michael Jackson is a great example.
Yeah.
So to see him live, you know, for the younger generation, even younger than you, would be terrific.
It would be really, really cool. I think it's nice to share music with like previous generations. It is kind of sad when you don't have that opportunity. I had to see, I'm a big fan of Bruce Springsteen, and I had to see him before he died. I was very worried that it would happen in the next 10 years and I would never have gotten to see him. So I saw him last year, and I am very happy to have been able to do so. But
and you know, my world, I had an opportunity to go to Carnegie Hall to see Sinatra.
Oh my goodness.
And I don't know, I got busy or something like that and blew him off. And he didn't care. But you know, he passed, you know, a few years later, and I really missed that opportunity to see Sinatra. Now, he only sang for 20, 25 minutes, but I mean, he was a showman. I mean, he really got it. So to relive that even through AI, you know, that would be absolutely terrific. And I think that's where we're going, Shannon, is the fact that we're gonna get to the point. I'm working on this AI project, very similar, where you're going to be able to create image and likenesses of Sinatra and Jackson and put them in real time. I mean, and you can talk to them in real time.
Whoa, I mean, it's like the wax sculptures, but they can talk back to you.
Exactly. I'm working on this American project where you can talk to the signers of the Declaration of Independence.
Whoa.
In real time. So you have an app, and you go on, and let's say you want to talk to Benjamin Franklin. You can go online and ask Benjamin Franklin anything within you know, logical reason, or Betsy Ross or Thomas Jefferson or Sam Adams or John Adams, and that is where we're going in the future. The issues with the artists or sport figures is they own their image and likeness. So you'd have to go to the Jackson family, you'd have to go to the Sinatra family, you'd have to go to the Babe Ruth family, and put all that together, and that could be kind of costly. So we developed this program that we think we're going to put into schools for the 250th anniversary, where schools can either collectively or individually as a homework assignment, you got to go talk to Ben Franklin. You got to go talk to Thomas Jefferson. You got to go talk, and that's only the first wave. The second wave will be the presidents. So you can talk to, you know, FDR, Teddy Roosevelt, Abraham Lincoln, John Kennedy. And what AI does is not so much the animation, which helps, but if you ask JFK a question of Bay of Pigs, it goes in and pulls all the data about Bay of Pigs. So if the student says, why the heck did you go into Bay of Pigs? John F. Kennedy can answer why he went into Bay of Pigs.
That is really incredible. I think that'll really revolutionize the way in which people learn, especially there's so many kids that have a difficulty with books, like, and it's not necessarily because they're not smart or it's just not their best way of learning. So being able to physically talk to someone is incredible. That is so great.
I'm with, and that's the reason why they have developed this software. I didn't, but they just hired me as part of the project. And because kids today, in classrooms, they don't want to read a book,
especially with AI, they don't have to read a lot.
Yeah. But be able to talk to, Benjamin Franklin, okay, and why'd you fly the kite, okay, or the story of the 56 signers was kind of drastically deadly because, we hear about John Hancock and Benjamin Franklin and Thomas Jefferson, but the other ones were really normal folk who signed, and then the British figured out who they were, and they went in and basically killed them or imprisoned them. I mean, it's really a sad story. But anyway, that's where we're starting. And then from there, we're going into the presidents, and then eventually maybe sport or entertainment figures.
That would be very cool. I'd love to have I guess you could do it in classrooms depending on how advanced it gets, but it would be really cool to just have that in a museum. I mean, that would be amazing to be able to interact and be able to learn from, almost firsthand, technically, from the person that was involved in it. And that's a crazy advancement with AI that I would never have expected, but it's very interesting because there's so many movies that are future looking that incorporate some level of that. So it is really, really cool to see it happen in real time.
Well, we are trying to get into the school systems or find a sponsor to adopt the license that they can, put on their either the website. So let's mention Coca-Cola. I mean, you could go to Coca-Cola's website and say, I'm going to talk to Ben Franklin or Thomas Jefferson. And you go through that. And each one of these corporations have educational programs. And so they can adopt or grant the license to high schools and colleges and lower schools so they could do that. And I think that, that's the wave of the future.
Yeah, that is something that that's really cool to find out about. I'm definitely gonna look into it a little more because I think that's an incredible project to get to work on. It must be so fascinating for you to get to learn more and more about what the plans are for that. So that's really, really cool. Well, so getting into other things that you also do. You mentioned the Olympics before and attending it, but you've also done deals with the Olympics. What is a lesson that you've kind of learned from the high stakes world that small brands could maybe learn from?
Great question. The Olympics are either for massive brands like Coca-Cola, or they are a stepping stone for wannabe brands. And, I say this humbly, my claim to fame was that American Express was the behemoth of credit cards or payment systems. And they blew me off when I was trying to sell them the Olympic sponsorships. And MasterCard was, just non-existent. That's my MasterCharge. And so I went to Visa, who was a wannabe brand, and they were the number 3 brand. So we came up with this campaign called The Olympics Don't Take American Express. And what they wanted to demonstrate is no matter where in the world you went, that you better bring your Visa card because the Olympics don't take American Express. Well, we successfully implemented that campaign, and it destroyed American Express's image that they were accepted everywhere in the world. And
that is incredible.
And I wrote my book's not around here somewhere, but I wrote the book called The Olympics Don't Take American Express. And it was so damaging to American Express. They went from the number one brand to maybe three. Visa leapfrogged them pretty quickly, and because the original games were in Calgary, Canada. This is way back in 1988, but the American Express, when the campaign came out, American Express did a survey of their card members, and they thought the entire city of Calgary didn't take American Express. I mean, it destroyed their image. So Visa went from a number three brand to a number one brand. It was a big gamble on Visa's part, but that changed the destiny of even today. I mean, if you went to Milan coming up, or even Los Angeles in 2028, you better bring a Visa card, because you can't buy a ticket, you can't buy a T-shirt, a Coca-Cola product without a Visa. I mean, you can pay cash. You don't have cash anymore, right? And so it really changed the destiny. So to answer your question, big time sponsorships done correctly can take a wannabe brand to a number one brand.
Yeah, that is an incredible story, and I think that even I think I would have said incredible probably 10 times on this podcast, but what you do is really cool. It's a good. It's not even what I like about the campaign so much is it's not even any kind of like it's slander. It's something that's very true of the idea that American Express cannot be used everywhere, and it's something that just pointing it out is a campaign in itself. And I love like the creativity behind that, because that does just being able to point out what one brand can do that maybe another cannot is enough to elevate that brand, knowing that, you know, they are capable of being used in all these places, whereas this other one isn't, but it's appeared as like a luxury to be able to have something. But if you can't use it everywhere, how much of a luxury is it?
Yeah, I mean, that the Visa campaign showed images of the Olympic Games and stuff, and they said, hey, listen, if you go to the Olympic Games, you know, bring your camera, because there's images everywhere, and you better bring your Visa card because the Olympics don't take American Express. That was an ad campaign that Visa ran, I think, through 1994, 1995, and American Express went to the International Olympic Committee and said, okay, we screwed up. We didn't buy your thingy, but you should not allow a company the benefit of denigrating another company like American. And the IOC acknowledged that and asked Visa to back off that campaign, and they did. So, but Visa is so far ahead of everybody, it doesn't matter anymore.
Are you banned from using American Express now? Did they take away your?
I actually sold them a program years later with the NFL. But I was worried walking through the halls of American Express that, you know, they'd be, you know,
they're out for blood.
But no, they were fine. They respected me, and they respected me greatly, because I really damaged them hard.
I mean, you know, you can respect smart. I mean, smart can respect smart. I mean, it's
they were so arrogant back in those days. And we thought we had American Express to be the global sponsor. And you know, we had worked with even the chairman level, and they basically, you know, flipped us off. And after we'd spent so much time with them, that I, in my youth, got really upset. And so I said, I'm going to find someone else. And they laughed at me. They said, what? There's somebody else. We're American Express. And so when, and they said, well, it was called Master Charge back then.
Yeah.
Bank of Americard back then. And so they said, what are you going to go find those ragtag group of banks that can't even decide what to have for lunch? Okay. And I did. And that made my career, you know, so.
Yeah, it's definitely I think that is a really good lesson for small businesses too, in another light of the idea that you don't think you're larger than life if you're just making it right now. I think that I think that you kind of always have to be humble even if you're doing exponentially better than other businesses, because I it reminds me of I think most people know about this, but Stephen King having hiring directors like right out of college that don't know like too much about filming to record some of his movies. And some of them are flops, of course. It's a young person doing a movie, but it's also, some of them are incredible hits. And it's like he gives people the chance to, rise to the occasion. And
Correct.
I think that with larger businesses discounting working with anyone that they don't deem to be on their level is at a detriment to them, because if they turn everyone away, then they just look bad and they don't make any friends.
Well, the then chairman, I won't mention this, I think he's deceased, but Jim Robinson said that in all of his career, the biggest mistake he ever made was not buying the Olympic proposition and let Visa steal it from him. And which is true, true.
If they took it, then there would be no shame to their name. Maybe later down the line, because I think that's a genius campaign that could still be profited off of at some point, because it's just a true fact. I mean, but had it not been so publicly proposed, then I think that it may have not changed much about their stature in where they were at the time.
Yeah, the only other, I had nothing to do with this, but the only other campaign that changed destiny was, again, I think back in 1984, was when Apple introduced the original iPhone, or the Mac computer. And there was that one commercial where the young lady was running through and broke the glass ceiling, and that ad campaign, which ran once in the Super Bowl, I think changed the image, because everything was about IBM, and here was Apple. Okay, and I think changed the imagery, because the younger generation at the time, which I was at that time, didn't want to deal with stodgy IBM. And here was something, Steve Jobs had something so cool, and it was a computer that everyone could, navigate, and it was great for the schools. And what he would do was, and I had nothing to do with this, so I'm not taking any credit. At the end of the year, if he had excess inventory, he would donate it to schools. So inventory went in there, and so if you were a kid, you would learn computer skills on an Apple, not an IBM, an Apple. And that's the reason why you have the Apple generation today, because those kids that were maybe 8, 10, 12 years old are now adults, and they'd rather deal with an Apple than an IBM.
Yeah, it's something that it is a very smart move, not only because you seem generous and people will look at you as someone who is a philanthropic, which gives a good taste in people's mouths, but it also raises a generation on a product, which is so imperative in brand loyalty, because you're just familiar with it. It's like when adults grow up, or when they leave their parents' house, they realize, oh, I'm just buying the brands that I'm familiar with that were in my house growing up, unless they don't exist or anything like that. But normally that's what it is. And it's the same with technology, is if you grow up with something or a brand that you're familiar with, not a lot of people want to learn something new, or people are willing to try things, but when it's a big commitment like a product like a computer, it's much more of a risk when you're paying so much money to learn something new. And Apple is familiar for all these generations of people that grew up with them.
Correct. And back in the day, I don't know if it still holds true today, but the credit card companies wanted a student. They wanted to give a student a little credit card that had maybe $100, $200, because they realized that the loyalty to that credit card would go on for years. I kept my first credit card for 30 years. I mean,
closing it doesn't make sense. Your credit score goes down, so you might as well keep it.
But I was loyal. Sorry, I was loyal to that credit card and to that bank for 30 years until the bank sold it to another bigger bank, and on and on and on. But getting a customer early and like their first car is a big deal, because you have customers for life.
Yep, I agree. It's even for a perfect example of the credit card that you said, Discover has a student card. Like it's specifically mentioned, and I think that is the card of the day of most people that I know. When I went to college, would get a student, and they even had stands at college events to advertise their credit card, because they say that it's imperative that we start building credit early. And a student card, it had I think for while you were in college, it didn't have an interest rate, so you could pay back as slow as you wanted, and that was really good for college students because they're irresponsible and learning about life. But it also, they're going to keep that credit card probably often because they kind of have to, unless their credit score is so good that if it goes down from canceling it, they'll be fine. But it's something that, they just keep, also because they just don't. Again, it's about not maybe, I don't know if it's really laziness. I think it's just human nature to not necessarily want to learn the ins and outs and intricacies of other things, even if they're somewhat similar. So if you know something, familiarity is something that really does drive the loyalty to a brand. And that's this.
Well, it goes to your point about a young person moves out of their house and they get to the apartment for the first time, he or she, and they go and buy the products that they're familiar with because their parents bought them, okay, or they were in the house. Totally agree with that. Totally agree. Even at my age, I go back and think about, way back when I did that. You bought, Kleenex, and you bought Mr. Clean and all that kind of stuff, and back in the day, a Hoover vacuum cleaner, which was the rage. And so you do that. So that is a very good point.
Yeah, I appreciate that. And speaking of, I think it's also kind of related to an emotional attachment, even if you don't want to admit that you have an emotional attachment to that Lysol or whatever it may be. Familiarity is kind of emotional because it's almost nostalgic. And correct. You also talk about how, a great sponsorship is an emotional transaction. Can you kind of talk about a time where a deal looked really good on paper, but it didn't have that emotional punch that you were looking for when in practice?
Yeah, the one that comes to mind, again, it was a long time ago, but I sold the Olympic sponsorship to FedEx. And FedEx was trying to expand internationally at the time. And I sold it to a group inside of International. And they did not have the support of corporate FedEx. I know Fred Smith has just passed recently, but Fred had back surgery or something. So someone else made the decision to do it. And don't have top-down support for a bottom-up program, the program's dead. Program's dead. So those we did really well in Seoul for the Olympic Games and also in Calgary, but it was a one-hit wonder. I mean, they did it and they got out, and that was very unfortunate. I think when someone sponsors the Olympic Games, or even World Cup, which is going to be a monster next year, you've got to have a total corporate support. You got to have not only top-down management and up-down, but you got advertising support, promotion, hospitality. I mean, it's a huge mix of stuff going on. And if you don't get, it's like an engine with 8 cylinders. If all 8 cylinders aren't firing, in a row, you got a problem. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
So you got PR, you got government relations, you got employee relations, all this community relations. I mean, you've got all this stuff. And it's when you sponsor something like the Olympics or World Cup, even the NFL, it's a huge commitment of resources and mental time. So, were there any other failures? Normally, what will happen is a company will buy a sponsorship for a particular reason, brand awareness, customer loyalty, and it's really a promotion for most of these. So it'll run its time, and then they move on to other things.
Mm-hmm.
A lot of times it's because management has changed. So the man or woman who said, yes, let's do the Olympics is, gone. And the new man or woman who comes in says, we don't want to do that. I want to do something else. So you lose a lot of these corporations because of management change.
Yeah, that's really frustrating because it must be really nice when you grab the attention of someone that you thought maybe or was really difficult to do, and then backing out because something just changed internally. That's probably really aggravating.
Yep.
Has there been a sponsorship deal that you really wish you landed but didn't, outside the American Express one, because I think that worked out really well? But like one that you kind of wish you landed but didn't, and what did you kind of learn from that experience?
It has nothing to do with me, but the fact that I was very envious back in NASCAR days when they landed Sprint. It wasn't Nexstar, it was Sprint. And I couldn't believe this kid did this multi-million-dollar deal, much like I did years prior. But he got, there was a communications company prior to Sprint, Next something. And they eventually sold to Sprint.
Mm-hmm.
But he cold called a CMO, got a meeting, and they did this massive NASCAR deal. And I was very envious that this kid, my age back in the day, did this monster deal. So that was it. I don't have any that really got away. Meaning.
That's good.
Yeah, I don't have anything that I said, oh my God, got away. Maybe back in the day, Heinz. We had Heinz for a global deal. And they had to, when you get up to that level, you got a lot of buy-in. You've got regions buying in, countries buying in, board of directors buying in. And so I lost that one. That one was tough. That would have been a huge deal for the International Olympic Committee, because Heinz is especially then, global brand, and we could have done things in India and London, Mexico, and Asia that would have really advanced the Olympic brand. Chase McDonald's for years, and because they are so, decentralized and somewhat dysfunctional at the time, and they eventually became not through me, but they became an Olympic partner. So, I sometimes when you lose, you set the groundwork for other deals.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, it's kind of an educational thing that goes on.
Yeah, if you take every, failure, so to speak, as a learning moment, then you can always get them next year. I think that it's it's good to, realize maybe a pitch didn't work, because then you modify it for the next time, or maybe if something just almost worked, or maybe it did work and they backed out. I mean, you still have the opportunity to use that information and make it better the next time.
Agreed.
That's a positive way of looking at it, I think.
Yeah.
Was there any sponsors that you've had in the past that were unexpected and maybe surprising, but made very good campaigns?
Yeah, great question. I somehow got this wacky phone call, which never happens. No one calls me to buy stuff. I always said I was in the rejection business, and so I get a call. I get a call from this person who said he represented the United States Postal Service.
No way.
And I said, "Oh, wow, that's great. What are you calling me?" And they said, "Well, we want to sponsor the Olympics." And I go, "The Postal Service?
For the one country?" It's interesting.
Yeah. Well, I said, "We are selling a global program." So they said, "Well, we are one of 240 postal organizations around the world, and they form a unit where you can ship something or a letter to Germany, and they hand it off to the German post, and on and on and on." And I said, "Well, you got to understand, we're looking for a global partner." And he said, "Just take a meeting with this guy who's CMO of the Postal Service." And I'll never forget, God, it was an ungodly hour, like 6:30 in the morning. And I had to go I used to live in Connecticut, into Manhattan to meet with this guy named Peter Eichhorn. And he sits down and he goes, "Listen, I have a half hour." I go, "Great." I spent an hour coming in on the train and an hour back. And I figure this is a lark. And so he sits down. He says, "Well, the first 15 minutes is yours. Tell me what the Olympic sponsorship's all about." So I tell him it's 15 minutes, global this, and blah, 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 blah. And I'm thinking, what a waste of time. And then he asks questions for the last 15 minutes. He says, "Well, how much do you want?" And at the time, it was a lot of money. I said, I want $10 million for the global program. He goes, "Great, we'll do this. Send me the paperwork." And shook my hand, and he walked off to a meeting. I sent him the paperwork, and we did the deal. I mean, it was like over a half-hour cup of coffee that I think he paid for. And so it lasted one campaign. They raised a lot of money selling commemorative stamps, and they united the majority of the postal services. I forget the name of the program that they had around the world, and they did extremely well. And then there was a new postmaster general that came in and said, "What the hell are we doing this for?" So it was gone. So
after that $10 million,
$10 million. Well, now that same program is $200 million.
Yeah. Back then, I'm in 10 million. I mean, what a waste. I mean, that sounded like they really did a good job at first. It sucks when someone comes in.
Yeah, they tracked $165 million in incremental sales, either selling commemorative stamps, or remember, they were trying to, at the time, compete with FedEx and UPS. So what they did was they put the rings on their postal products, express mail, and they realized that, if they were getting 1 out of every 10 sales, because no one knew what they were, they got 2 out of every 10 sales because they were part of the International Olympic Committee. So it was a good one.
That's incredible. It's really cool to have gotten that call and just not expected it to work, and then it worked out really well. I mean, like, if it doesn't necessarily completely work for them, but they're willing to put the money in, then I guess it's kind of like really just a setback for them. But it's still really cool to get. I mean, if especially I wasn't aware that there's like this global connection, because it still can be unified as an Olympic like global event, but I never realized that was something that was possible for the Postal Service. So that's really cool too.
Yeah, I forget the name of it back now, and this goes way back, but I forget the name of the Union of Postal Services.
Mm-hmm.
They all have agreements. So, like I said, if you send a letter to Germany, USPS has a agreement with Deutsche Post, and so they go back and forth. And if you wanted to, if Deutsche Post wanted to send an express mail package to the United States, it goes back and forth. It's a really cool cooperative.
I think that is really cool. So, well, to round out the podcast, because we're getting close to time, and I just want to make sure that I get you out of here in time for your next meeting. But, is there anyone that you have like a dream to have a sponsorship with? Like you maybe like spent your whole career, and it would be so cool to be able to get to this person or this company.
Great question again. I've done majority of them. I've never done a deal with Google.
Oh.
I've never done a deal with Amazon.
Two very hard nuts to crack.
They're tough to get into. I don't care about Disney. I mean, they're natural born killers anyway. And so I'd say Amazon and Google. I've done a deal with Microsoft. I've done Facebook. So Amazon and Google would be the two.
That is really, really awesome. I mean, I to have such an outstanding career that these two of like the biggest that I could probably think of reaching are the only ones left for you. I mean, I think that shows a good success rate for you.
I've done McDonald's. I've done, like I said, Microsoft. I've done the automotives. Coca-Cola. Not so much Pepsi, but the fact that but Google and really Amazon are the next generation. And so and then you got to remember, I'm getting older, right? And so the generation that makes decisions are your age, okay? And so to figure out a way to reach them is very key. So Jeff Bezos would be a great friend. I didn't get invited to his wedding. And
a lot of people are making fun of it, so I think you're okay. The media is cutthroat.
Yeah. So, but anyway, those would be the two.
I think that's really great, and I wish you luck. I think that before you decide that you don't want to do this career anymore, unless you're a for lifer and you love what you do all the time and forever, that's also incredible. I wish that you got these clients. I hope that they're not the ones who got away at any point.
Well, thank you. Thank you for your time.
Thank you. I had such an incredible time doing this. This was really, really fun and super cool to learn about your career. It's amazing. I mean, this is really cool to learn to work with these kind of brands.
Well, I like to tell people I'm an ordinary guy that led an extraordinary life, and because I never really expected to, swim with the Sharks and do the IOC and FIFA World Cup and Jerry Jones and the Dallas Cowboys. I never expected that, and not all of it were wins. I mean, like I said, I'm in the rejection business, and for every, 10 outreaches, maybe you'll get one response, no matter who you think you are. And to manage that is a psychological challenge.
I definitely agree, and I like how positive you are, because I do think that in being in the business of rejection sometimes makes you a little bit pessimistic sometimes, but you wouldn't be able to make the accomplishments that you did without still trying.
Right, and getting ticked off from time to time. So
yeah, we're all human. But thank you again so much for joining me today. I know that everyone listening will get hopefully as much out of this as I did. I selfishly, my favorite part of the podcast is learning from it, and I learned a lot from you. So thank you so much.
Thank you. Send me the link so I can share with my family.
I will. Thank you so much, and have a lovely day. Good luck with the rest of your day and your weekend. Happy 4th of July as well.
Happy 4th. Bye-bye.
Bye.
You've been listening to Fully Managed, brought to you by Penji. Check out the show notes to learn more about today's guest, and to learn more about Penji, the human-first creative subscription service, head over to penji.co. And by the way, if you're still listening, it would mean the absolute world to us if you were to share this podcast with a friend and, of course, subscribe.